Hi, good morning, Anita.
Good
This is a
morning.
this is a pleasure to meet you and a privilege actually to interview you. I've watched your campaign for the past 10 months. It's grown greatly as you have, and I think this is a great opportunity to have your constituents learn more about you. You are certainly the youngest candidate to run for Congress, and you've gained a huge following of supporters. And so, why don't we do this? We'll start out with you introducing yourself and to give a brief statement as to why you are running for Congress.
Sure. At my core, I'm an educator, and I have been for the last 10 years. And one thing I often tell my students is that we use our voice to inspire change in the world around us. And last year, I found out about how severe the issue of child sex trafficking is in the United States. An estimated 100 to 300,000 cases, with 80% being American youth. And I was appalled that our government didn't seem to have a stronger response to it. And so with that, I decided to begin a congressional campaign to shine a light on this issue and to be a voice for the voiceless.
So, you've been on the campaign trail for about 10 months, and you've interacted with a lot of your constituents, potential constituents. What is the top issue with those people that you've met with?
Yeah, we have lots of concerns, especially including crime, inflation, homelessness. These are all top of mind for our constituents because it's what they experience every day.
All right, and in terms of the issues that I've seen, it appears that illegal immigration is one of the top concerns with America. And also, I think that you've discussed that part of that issue in your basically introduction, that with the illegal trafficking, sex trafficking, children trafficking. Why don't you just share with the public what your thoughts are about the illegal immigration?
Yeah, illegal immigration definitely is one of those top concerns, top of mind for so many of our constituents because they're seeing images of what's happening at the border. Unfortunately, contrary to popular belief, open borders is not compassionate, it's cruel. It's cruel because we see those issues of trafficking, stories, documented stories of women and children being abused sexually all the way through. And so to imagine that that could be compassion, and not even to mention all of the drug trafficking that's happening with fentanyl now being one of the leading causes for death in American adults. That's not compassion, that's cruelty. And so instead, we need to have a strong stance at the border. There should be a physical barrier as a symbol that any attempts to cross will be met with resistance.
Well, what are some of your solutions to try to stem this tide of illegal immigrants? And before you begin that answer, actually, just to give some context to your constituents, the prior administration had 2.4 million illegal entries. And in the current administration, it's spiked to 11 million, and that doesn't even count the getaways. So with that said, how do you plan to stem this tide?
Right, and to add to that, once illegal immigrants cross the border, it then becomes the government's responsibility to feed, to house, to educate, to medicate all of these illegal immigrants, and that is not free money. That is a bill that is being footed by the American people, and it's just not fair for them to ask to be doing that. We've seen cities like San Diego, New York City, Chicago that are overrun. Their social systems are just at the breaking point or already past the breaking point, and that's not a pattern we want to replicate throughout the entire country or for another 4 years. And so I think it's important that we have a physical barrier as recommended by HR 2, supported by technology, so our border agents can respond to this overwhelming crisis in a humane way with dignity, because there are many vulnerable people that are being taken across the border. In some cases, they've given up their entire lives in order to come here, and now having to return back. I think it's a very delicate situation, but on the side of the United States, we must have a strong resistance at the border, and as a symbol that we will enforce our sovereignty by protecting our own borders.
All right. Do you see anything happening in the cities or the border cities where a barrier actually is successful.
Yeah, I've seen success in Texas where they were able to repel some of the attempts to cross due to a physical border.
All right. Now, one of the things that you also raised in terms of the illegal immigration is the cost of illegal immigration to house and to feed those individuals. Does that have an impact on our current economy?
Oh, definitely. What we're thinking about is social services. So social services are paid into by taxpayers, voters, constituents. There are even people who are here on green card, for example, that are paying into the social systems. However, when we look at illegal immigrants, they come with just themselves and they're not paying into these social systems, but they're taking out from it. And the math just doesn't work, unfortunately.
Do you see some cities or states that are already facing these financial burdens from the illegal immigration?
Yeah, I think situations like that, also as we've seen in Chicago and San Diego, our social systems are at their breaking point, and it's not fair to ask the American people to bear the burden of that.
Now, you know that counter to that argument is that the United States is a land of immigrants, and that we need immigrants for services, for skills, a labor force, things of that sort. I mean, what would be your response?
Certainly. I mean, America is a land of immigrants. My parents were immigrants. Immigrants are part of the American story. But we have to do it legally. America is a country of laws. So for those who are seeking to build a new life in this country, which I welcome and applaud, their first act of entry into this country cannot be an illegal one.
All right. And you know, you hear a lot of discussion that they say that the current immigration laws and the system are broken. I just want to ask you, do you have your thoughts on that?
Our immigration laws have been crafted over decades of policy making, and certainly there can be improvements, but I don't think so much that the system is broken, rather that the system is being broken because there's a huge influx of illegal immigrants, and again, it's the government's responsibility then to have to house, to feed, to educate, and medicate this group of individuals, and when that number is in the millions, it's easy to see how any system would be overrun and overflooded.
You know, just on a final topic of immigration, oftentimes you see on TV, billboards, just any form of the legacy media is showing that the faces of the illegal immigrants would be this nice family. There are a lot of women with their children, things of that sort. But is there another side to the illegal immigration surge that you would at least like to bring to the attention of the Americans?
I think everyone has an individual story, that each immigrant who, legal or illegal, coming to this country has a desire for a better life, and I applaud that. Unfortunately, there have been alarming media reports, as you've mentioned, of whether the most vulnerable, like women and children, or military-aged men that are entering into the United States. And I think across the board, the answer will be a physical barrier at our border to demonstrate to anyone that, yes, you can come to the United States for a better life, but the best way to do that is legally. So, in short, we must have a border, and that border can have a door in it.
Has the surge of illegal immigrants affected the crime rate in the United States?
Certainly, yes. There are a number of illegal immigrants who unfortunately have committed crimes in the United States, which endangers the American public, and that deserves our immediate attention, and they should be detained and deported.
So that's a very important topic, the issue of inflation. And what are your policies to try and tackle inflation?
Yeah, inflations are primarily governed by interest rates, so we should see how we could lower that. But one thing that the federal government can do right now is to regain our energy independence. Right now, energy costs and the way that they've skyrocketed in the last few years are one of the main reasons behind why Americans are feeling the pinch all across the board. I'll just give you an example, your food and the grocery store. In order for it to make it there, your food needs to be planted, it needs to be plowed, picked, prepared, before it's finally transported to the grocery store. All of that takes energy. And it's why oil has been described as the lifeblood of an economy. All of it requires energy. Now we have a lot of different options to build that energy. It could be nuclear, it could be solar, it could be wind, it could be clean gas and energy. Whatever it is, it's necessary that the United States is self-reliant and self-sufficient when it comes to her energy needs. Because right now we're buying our oil from Russia, from Saudi Arabia, which places us at their mercy and drives up the cost of energy. So it is important that as the federal government to lower the effect of inflation on our citizens to regain energy independence.
All right. Now, I'd like to raise the topic that is actually on one of the top 5 lists of Americans, and that is there seems to be a lot of anxiety over the growing number of wars or conflicts worldwide.
Sure.
You certainly have the one where in Ukraine, that's where Russia invaded Ukraine. You have the one that was more recently, just within the past year, October 7th of 2023, where Hamas invaded and slaughtered so many people in Israel. And then you hear rumblings and actually physical interventions between China and the maritime fleets of other countries, as well as even the United States military fleets in the China and South Sea and the Taiwan Strait. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a strong United States is good for global peace. I think one of our presidents had said that speak softly but carry a big stick. The United States must be strong militarily in order to ensure peace for ourselves and ensure peace for our allies. It's only been in the last 4 years that we've seen an increase in those provocations. And so I think when the United States restores its military strength, it is, again, a symbol to the world that the United States will not be bullied, neither will allow its allies to be bullied.
All right, and so then you do support the fact that our military needs to be built up?
Yes, our military must be strong.
And has there been a decrease in the enrollment or the people who enlist to serve the military?
I do believe that there is a lack of military enrollment. I'm not sure exactly how the numbers play out, but I know in terms of funding, as well as our military arsenal, there's definitely been a drawdown in the last few years.
All right, thank you. Now, another major concern that really affects Americans directly is their concern for public safety.
Sure.
And whether or not the numbers, there's always arguments that the numbers of physical violence, physical assaults on individuals have decreased, violent crimes have decreased, but then certainly counter arguments is that there's been a huge spike in property thefts and including home invasions. So aside from the numbers themselves, in your meeting with constituents, do you get an impression that aside from the numbers, that it is a concern, their public safety of individuals?
Absolutely. Public safety is one of the top of mind concerns for our constituents. And as a hopeful federal legislature, we have limited effect on state and local laws, which actually have the most effect on a constituent's day-to-day life. And so, for example, Prop 47, which is a California law, was passed about a decade ago with the best intentions to try and reduce our prison population. But what that also meant was a lack of accountability, a lack of consequences for action. And we see the results of that in all the numbers and effects that you mentioned: increased break-ins, car theft, organized retail theft. And now we have Prop 36 to try and rebalance some of that in the laws and once again provide accountability for our actions. People need to know that our actions have consequences. Those consequences can be humane, they can be empathetic, they can even be life-giving with the help of nonprofit organizations that support our incarcerated neighbors. But actions must have consequences. And when they don't, we see, like we've seen in the last few years in California, here in the Bay Area, people feeling unsafe in their places of work, their places of learning, their places of enjoyment. And unfortunately, it's unacceptable for a safe and flourishing community.
So I know that you're embarking on this road to become a congresswoman, yet the polls are showing that Americans lack trust in their government. I think that right now that there's a 22% of support of their current government. That's on a strong support, maybe a little bit larger where they have some ambivalence about it, but it is certainly a drop in the support of American government. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you
Yeah.
believe that?
As I'm talking to voters, unfortunately, that is the general sense, that their elected officials don't have their best interests in mind. And it feels as though our elected officials have lost touch with what our daily lives look like, our daily realities. I mean, this is a funny story, but I had a voter tell me, I don't get it why I pay taxes, but I still have to drive on potholes. And every time I go pick up my child or I go to work, I just hit a bump in the road and I have this question: why does it feel like our elected officials don't have our best interests in mind? And I think the remedy to that is to have candidates and politicians, elected officials, who are interacting on a regular basis with their constituency, asking them about their concerns, inviting them to be a part of the political process and even a part of policy making. As an independent Republican, that is my intention. And that's what it means to be an independent Republican, that my loyalty is first to the people, not to a party, not to a person, but the people that I represent.
Now, in addition to this discussion about potholes and things of that sort, are there other forms of doubt that the American public has that their government is not representing them?
Certainly, I think those represent a range of concerns. I'll just share one story that our campaign received recently. There was a man who had been pronounced dead by the IRS, and that means that he can't get his tax returns. And that's difficult for someone who is living on pension or on a set amount of income each year due to retirement. And he had been trying for months and months and months, or years actually, to contact his representatives, to reach the federal government, to try and go through all the right channels to show the fact that he is very much alive. Unfortunately, he did not get a positive response from his representative, nor did he get a expedient response from federal agencies. And I think it's that sense that we're paying taxes, we're doing our best to follow the laws, we're being good citizens, and yet our representatives, our officials, our federal agencies are not responsive to our needs. That makes people feel unrepresented.
All right, and I know that a very heated issue, regardless of when the elections are, how many times we have them, is this issue of pro-life versus pro-choice. And I'd like you to share your thoughts on that.
Sure, yeah. Abortion has divided the country for decades. I know how delicate this issue is, and it's so individual because women carry their children in their bodies. The Supreme Court has made the difficult decision to return this issue back to the states, and I support that interpretation. But I would like to see a world in which all women feel empowered to carry their child to term if that is their choice, that there would be holistic options presented to them, such as adoption, so that they can give life, choose life for their child. It's not fair that women have to choose between carrying their child, which so often they want, and their career, their health, their finances. I would like to see a world in which women are given a totality of their choices and feel empowered to do whatever it is they choose to do. And even today, we see holistic pregnancy care centers that are carrying out this work. They will provide everything for the mother, from diapers to formula to adoption resources to retreats, even for parents who have chosen abortion, and the recovery and care that is needed after that decision. And so I would like to see us walk towards a society that has wraparound care for both the mother, the father, and the child.
That's a wonderful position. Thank you very much. Now, there has also been a recent Supreme Court ruling dealing with the issue of affirmative action. And I know that there's a lot of, that's preferential admissions in colleges, schools. You also have basically a cousin issue, which is the diversity, equity, and inclusion push that's been out there. A lot of changes going on there. Can you share your thoughts on that? What would you say to your constituents about your thoughts on that issue?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion has dominated the conversation in academia and a lot of times in the workplace as well. And I have to give credit to DEI initiatives for teaching us some important lessons about culture and language and recognizing the different backgrounds that people can come from. But there is a big difference between equity and equality. Equality is what Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of when he said we should be judged not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. And unfortunately, due to equity initiatives such as affirmative action, we see students having their applications essentially boosted because of the color of their skin or their ethnic background. That's not something that we can change. And unfortunately, what that does is it breeds a bitterness among students and even colleagues. I mean, imagine working so hard for your dream job, putting decades of work into it, finally securing it, and being told by your colleagues that you're a DEI hire. That's so unfair, and they don't deserve that whatsoever. And so I think if we restore a system in which, and this is very much in line with the American identity, we restore a system in which no matter where you come from, no matter what you look like, you can take a step forward and build the life that you want based on your own merit and your own right to self-determination, not anything that has to do with the way that you look.
Once again, I draw back on the 10 months that you've been on the campaign trail. And what is it that you would like your constituents to know about you that they haven't already heard about you?
And my parents are immigrants to this country. They came here to study, got their green card, and I actually became a citizen before they did. So when I think about America, the words that come to mind are from my native tongue. Meiguo. Meiguo means the beautiful country. And having been on this campaign trail, I can see why. I've seen constituents from all corners of this district, from every language, culture, and tradition. And I've seen with my own eyes the beauty of America. That is what makes America beautiful. It is us, we the people. We make America beautiful. Unfortunately, I've also heard from these people their disappointment and their despair, believing that their vote doesn't matter. And I just want to shake them by the shoulders and say, your story matters. Who you are matters. Your experience matters. And that, in this case, culminates in your voice, what you bring to the table as an American citizen with all of your life experience, with all of your hopes and dreams, all of your aspirations. You have a place at the table. One way that our laws allow us to exercise our voice is our vote. And it may seem small, it may seem insignificant, but the American promise is that we each have a role to play in the political process. And as we choose to vote, as we encourage our friends and our neighbors to make their voice heard through their vote, we step in and we engage with the political process, and we become the hands that shape the American story.
Well, thank you very much for that statement, because I can understand fully now the enthusiasm that your constituents have, your people that really support you. You have a great, endearing manner about you and sincerity. And I can only just say that I understand how they feel and wish you best of luck in your campaign.
Thank you so much.